overnight, obviously, you've seen these horrendous events that have taken place in Florida. And I'm going to go to Simon Marks for him to give me an update on what the political ramifications of all of this have been in the USA today. Simon.
Nigel, this was the fourth time President Trump has had to interrupt his day to speak publicly after an incident of mass gun violence in America. He said the nation is in grief and collectively sharing one heavy heart.
To every parent, teacher and child who is hurting so badly, we are here for you, whatever you need, whatever we can do to ease your pain.
He spoke directly to the nation's children.
You have people who care about you, who love you, and who will do anything at all to protect you.
And he vowed to lead a task force aimed at making America's schools safe, with a particular focus on mental illness.
We are committed to working with state and local leaders to help secure our schools and tackle the difficult issue of mental health.
That he called his government's top priority, but he never referred to the ability of 19-year-old Nicholas Cruz, now facing 17 charges of premeditated murder, legally to acquire an AR-15 assault rifle, the same kind of gun used in earlier massacres in Las Vegas, Texas, Orlando, and at Sandy Hook Elementary School in Connecticut. While the president said nothing about gun control, Paul Ryan, the Republican Speaker of the House of Representatives, indicated his opposition to any talk of tighter laws.
This is not the time to jump to some conclusion, not knowing the full facts.
But other Republicans are wobbling. Treasury Secretary Steve Mnuchin, a top member of the Trump cabinet, indicated he thinks Congress now needs to take the issue on. And Republican Governor of Florida Rick Scott, at the scene of the school shooting, connected the dots between the mentally ill suspect and his ability to acquire a weapon.
If we have somebody that's mentally ill, they can't have access to a gun. I don't want my children, your children, my grandchildren, your grandchildren, ever anything to go through like this.
Many students at the school say they weren't entirely surprised by Wednesday's attack. They had joked with one another that if anyone was going to attack the school, it would be Nicholas Cruz, a former student and loner with a deeply troubled disciplinary record. And those students who lived through the assault are becoming vocal advocates of the need to address the easy availability of guns, at least in Florida. David Hogg is one of them, and he spoke to CNN.
What we really need is action, because we can say, yes, we're going to do all these things, thoughts and prayers. What we need more than that is action. We're children. You guys are the adults. You need to take some action and play a role. Work together, come over your politics, and get something done.
But none of that changes the political equation here. The all-powerful National Rifle Association remains a moneyed and articulate advocate of gun rights that it insists are rooted in the Second Amendment to America's Constitution. President Trump says he'll visit the scene of the attack and offer the nation's support to the grief-stricken. After this, the 18th school shooting in the United States so far this year. Nigel?
Well, it's an appalling incident. 17 dead, 50 injured at the Marjorie Stoneman Douglas High School in Parkland, Florida. But when you really look at the numbers and the frequency of this, it becomes very sobering indeed, because this is the 18th incident in which a gun has been discharged on a school campus in the USA this year. That's right, this year. We're only in the middle of February. Now, in terms of history, the worst ever was the Sandy Hook Elementary School back in 2012, when, 20 were killed, 20 children were killed and 6 adults were killed. And since 2013, there have been 290 incidents in which a gun was discharged on a school campus in America. So these are truly horrifying figures, not just what happened yesterday, but the sheer frequency with which this is taking place. There is clearly a massive, massive problem in the States with this. You've heard what the president had to say. Simon Marks made it very clear that Second Amendment rights in America, the right to bear arms, is something that people there hold very, very dear. But I think there's something about this one that is different. I really, really do. And I suspect there is going to be a very big hue and cry after this, not about Second Amendment rights so much, although, of course, there are clearly two very passionate sides of that debate. But I think over the internet, because there is something here, and I think there's going to be a really, really big stink about this, because YouTuber Ben Benite was talking with this guy Cruz that committed this awful crime, and Cruz himself said he wanted to become a professional school shooter. Now, Benite says he reported this comment to the FBI. He says the FBI interviewed him about it. And so it looks like the FBI investigated these comments made by Nicholas Cruz online, and yet they have not acted. And I suspect there is going to be one hell of a row over that. Indeed, I think there should be a hell of a row over that. And I wonder more broadly, you know, what's going on here? I mean, what do you put this never-ending series of gun crimes in American schools and elsewhere down to? Is it simply a case that America doesn't have sufficient gun controls? And if that's your view, call me on 0345 6060 973, or perhaps like the president, you think this is a mental health issue and that's what needs dealing with, in which case text to 84850, or maybe you think that this is really to do with the internet. There's too much content out there poisoning minds, and something has to be done, not just to regulate that content, but to deal with people like Cruz who make comments like this upon which the authorities didn't act. And if that's how you feel, then tweet using the hashtag Farage and LBC at LBC. I'm going to go to Adam in Manchester, a new caller to the show. Adam, good evening. What do you put it down to?
Good evening, Nigel. Well, in my opinion, I think it comes quite simply down to the accessibility of firearms in America, because they just seem to have a love affair for them, basically. Because you can spell all these different things about, you know, mental health and content on the internet and all that kind of stuff, but those sort of things, they're common in a lot of other countries. The only and not necessarily common with the individual incidents that happen in America. The only common thing that's happened in America is these people have had access to guns. And I think that's the main driver of it.
Yeah, and it's not just guns, Adam, is it? It is repeating rifles, and of course, remember that appalling case that happened in Las Vegas not so long ago. I mean, effectively, he'd managed to convert those assault rifles effectively into machine guns, hadn't he? Yeah,
exactly. And then what? Just that following week, they were talking in Congress about relaxing constraints on suppressors to try and make it a bit less noisy. I mean, where's the sense in that? I think like the main drive, a big drive of this is as well as the NRA. How powerful they are, how much money they've got to spend on lobbying constantly. I think it's like $250 million, something like that, a year. They just spend constantly.
I do think, I mean, it was Stephen Paddock who was the man that opened fire, if you remember, from that hotel window. 58 killed, 800 injured. And there was talk, as I say, of making that converter more difficult or illegal to obtain. But in general terms, Adam, you know, the NRA is very powerful in America. And, you know, the American Constitution, the right to bear arms, is something that people hold very dear. Now, that doesn't mean, Adam, that there can't be restrictions, it seems to me, on who is able to buy guns according to their record, according to their mental capabilities. But the idea, if anyone thinks that there's going to be legislation that stops Americans buying guns, Adam, it ain't going to happen.
Well, that's the thing. I think if Sandy Hook wasn't enough, these children were 5, 6, and 7-year-olds. If that wasn't enough to change their minds, then very bleak outlook on it. I don't think that country's got any hope of avoiding such things happening in the future.
Well, as I say, I mean, you know, this already, unbelievably, is the 18th incident in a school this year. Adam, I thank you for your call. Jerry is calling from Heathrow, another new caller to the Nigel Farage Show. Good evening, Jerry.
Good evening, Nigel. How are you?
I'm okay. I do think this one's different, Jerry. I do think that if the FBI were tipped off that somebody had said they were going to become a school shooter, something should have been done.
Absolutely. I mean, you know, if this is not a major wake-up call in that respect, then I don't know what is. And also, I'm hearing that pupils themselves at the school had already, it was popular knowledge that if anybody was going to do this, it was this guy. Well, I'm afraid that fellow students are going to have to get proactive in this and actually put their hand up to the authorities and say, I'm seriously worried about this guy, because ultimately they could pay the price with their life, couldn't they?
Well, there were a lot of warnings, weren't there? I mean, he was expelled from the school. He was expelled for getting into a fight with his ex-girlfriend's new boyfriend. Well, you might think that's not particularly unusual amongst teenagers. That kind of happens. Yeah. But, after that, he became very volatile. He ended, friendships with a lot of people. And as you say, in Simon Marks's report, they'd even joked that if anyone was going to do it, it was going to become this guy who'd got odder and odder and odder, and then, but the most devastating thing is the police say they're now going to dissect Cruz's internet history and social media, but he'd already put out the warning there. He'd said himself a few months ago he wanted to be a professional school shooter. YouTuber Ben Benite reported him to the FBI, and nothing happened, Jerry.
I know, it's completely shocking, and he did everything apart from drive around the town firing a weapon out of the window, But the other aspect to this all is the kind of firearms that the Americans seem to embrace so lovingly. I was a military man for 24 years. Guns were part of my life on an almost daily basis. But people who have a morbid fascination with weaponry, I find personally terrifying.
Yes, and of course there's no limit to the amount you can own. Jerry, I thank you for your call. But yes, this is different. Folks, this one is different. This debate, I think, will be less about gun control in the days to come, but more about the failure of the authorities to act, despite the fact they were very clearly warned about this guy Cruz. You're listening to the Nigel Farage Show, exclusively on LBC. It's now 7:16. UKIP have their big EGM this Saturday. The question is, should Henry Bolton stay or should he go? And I'm conducting a Twitter poll with you. We'll run it through until 10 to 8 tonight. So using the hashtag Farage on LBC, and you can go to @LBC or @Nigel_Farage, and you can say yes, he should stay, or no, he should go. And after our first quarter of an hour of the poll, 23% of you think he should stay, and at the moment the rest of you, the other 77%, think he should go. But back to our main subject tonight. It is 19-year-old Nicholas Cruz, who was expelled from the Marjorie Stoneman Douglas High School in Parkland, Florida, and yesterday he killed 17 people, at least 17 people, and there are 50 people injured, some of them in a life-threatening condition. And it is extraordinarily, it seems to me, the 18th incident in which a gun has been discharged on a school campus in the US this year, and we're only in the middle of February. What do you put it down to? James in Harlow, a new caller to the show. What do you put it down to, James?
Well, as much as I think Americans are stupid about the way they handle guns, I don't actually think the guns are relevant. They're just distracting from the real issue. And that's the same as in Britain with knives.
Yes.
That is, there's a group of individuals that has gotten bigger and bigger over the decades that have basically been failed, abused, and they just want half the time it feels like they're projecting their misery in their own head onto the world. They want you to understand what's going on in their minds. Does that make sense, kind of?
Yeah, it's interesting, actually. I've got a tweet that's come in here that says, so your callers want to ban guns, rifles in the US. Will they also support the total ban of knives and acid in the UK? Stop attacking the US gun lobby and start cleaning up. So, yeah, you're not the only person, James, that sees the parallels between the two problems. All I would say, James, is that appalling though the knife attacks and murders in London and other parts of the country are, the sheer scale of devastation that is caused by some of these repeating rifles is of a bigger magnitude, isn't it?
That is relevant, but not to what the topic of what's causing it is, just what's doing the damage. The guns are what's doing the damage, or what's causing these people to want to do the damage. Realistically, we're talking about it with guns, right?
Yeah.
Realistically, what if they decided to use bombs instead of guns? How much more damage would that do? A lot.
No. So James, so is President Trump right? Is this a mental health breakdown that's occurring amongst a section of our society?
Not necessarily. What I mean by this is, if I was Trump, this is what I would do. I'd get both parties together. I'd get the NSA, the Health Authority, social services leaders, every single shooting victim, put them on a table, analyse their lives down to the last speck, and you will find the same patterns. What they need to do is get all these victims and analyse every aspect of their lives. And if I may, I've had some experience with this, actually. So can I introduce that quickly?
Yeah, go on.
My family are criminals. I'm the one of about 20 who's not. All of them organised criminals. They're off touch to authority, same as they are in America. These people do that to their children, pass it on. We end up with communities that are broken down, and we end up with this. Same country, same as the states in London that are off limits. It's been going on for decades, Nigel. I'll give you an example, right? My sister, she phoned. I used to work at a council office. Now, as you know, threatening to blow up a public building, that should be classed as terrorism, shouldn't it?
It certainly should be, yeah.
Right, well, my sister sent in a text message to me in work saying she was going to blow up the building with me in it. The police said, because of these, and I agree with you, online laws and text laws need to be changed immediately. Because it was on texting online on Facebook, it was not classed as submittable evidence to be used in a criminal case at the time.
Well, it should be, shouldn't it? Because actually, yeah, of course it should be. It's the same as saying something, isn't it? James, I think, I mean, and I'm sure you're right, there are problem families and this sort of pattern of violent behaviour, lack of respect, and all of it goes on. But I do think in this case, what this has highlighted, James, and you say you saw it in a case with your family, what this has highlighted particularly is somebody specifically says he wants to become a school shooter. That individual clearly has had a recent disturbed past, and the FBI, it looks to me, have failed everybody. James, I thank you. I've got, when the American Constitution was written, guns were not as powerful as they are now, says Russell from Basildon. Russell, you're right. You know, the right to bear arms, fine, you know, for protection, for hunting, for whatever it may be, but it's not the same, is it, as buying, you know, an automatic repeating rifle. Yes, the FBI have questions to answer, and this is playing right into your hands to try and discredit them because they are going after Trump. Well, you can read conspiracy into this if you want to, and it may well be true that the president has had his problems with the authorities in the USA, but I think actually whoever sent that tweet, this would appear to me to be a real problem for the FBI.